Story 1, The Warehouse Watchman, intro. This story was sent in by Tyler H., a former night shift security guard based in Ohio. At first, it was just another quiet job, but over time, it became something far darker, something he says still haunts him in his dreams. If you ever worked alone at night, you'll know this. It's not always the silence that gets to you. It's what might be hiding inside that silence. Story. Tyler's job was simple. Watch over a sprawling 60,000 square foot distribution warehouse just outside of Cleveland. With most of the staff gone by 6 p.m., he had the entire building to himself until 6 in the morning. It was routine, boring, even. He'd patrol the loading docks, make his rounds through the aisles, sip his coffee in the break room, and occasionally scroll through his phone while watching the monitors. The first few weeks were uneventful, but then odd little things started happening. Things he couldn't explain. It started with noises. Faint footsteps echoing through the aisles long after his own had stopped. A soft thud as if a box had fallen. But when he went to check, nothing was out of place. Then one night, he heard something entirely different. Whispering. Not loud enough to make out, but definitely human and definitely nearby. He froze mid-step, scanning the dark aisle with his flashlight. No one. But the whispering didn't stop. It moved, like it was circling him. Tyler convinced himself it was just his mind playing tricks. Maybe the acoustics of the warehouse were bouncing sounds from outside. That's what he told himself. But then came the motion sensors. Each section of the warehouse had motion-activated lights that would flick on when someone passed by. During one of his 3 a.m. rounds, he saw something strange on the monitors. Aisle 17's lights were turning on one at a time, like someone or something was walking down it. He raced to the aisle, expecting to find an intruder. But there was no one, not even a box out of place. The aisle was empty, the lights blinking steadily overhead. As he stood there, trying to calm his breathing, all the lights down the aisle began to shut off, one by one, coming toward him. He turned and ran. After that night, he avoided aisle 17, but things escalated. Doors he locked would be open when he came back. Equipment would be moved. On more than one occasion, he'd hear coughing or crying from somewhere in the building, but it was the night he saw the figure that finally broke him. It was just after 4 a.m. He was near the rear loading dock when he caught movement in his peripheral vision. At first, he thought it was a shadow, but it was tall and still, a humanoid shape standing perfectly motionless between 2 stacks of pallets. He froze. The figure didn't move. He raised his flashlight. Nothing. Just empty space. But as he turned to walk away, his radio crackled with static, and through the white noise a single whispered sentence came through. Why are you still here? Tyler quit the next morning. He never gave a 2 weeks' notice. Never went back for his final paycheck. To this day, he won't even drive near that warehouse. He doesn't need proof. He knows what he saw, and he's convinced that whatever is in that building, it's still waiting. Credit submitted by Tyler H. in 2023. He now works daytime security only and refuses to take night shifts ever again. End. Story 2. The Abandoned Hospital. Intro. This story was shared with us by a nurse named Allison M., who worked a night shift at a rural hospital in Indiana before it shut down in the early 2000s. Years later, curiosity, and maybe a bit of nostalgia, led her back into that same hospital. But what she experienced there made her question everything she thought she knew about the afterlife, and about what lingers in places where people die. Story. Allison had been a night nurse for over 10 years. She was used to the quiet stillness of hospital corridors lit only by emergency lights. She'd seen patients pass, heard grieving families, and even witnessed some strange, unexplained things, but nothing compared to what she'd encountered after the hospital closed. The facility had been shut down for years, outdated, underfunded, and falling apart. But one of Allison's old co-workers, who had access to property, invited her to visit it one last time before it was completely demolished. They brought flashlights, some snacks, and nostalgia. It was supposed to be a trip down memory lane. The hospital was pitch black inside. Their footsteps echoed to the abandoned halls as they laughed, told old stories, and explored the empty nurses' stations. But the mood shifted when they reached the third floor, the old ICU. It was colder up there. The air felt wrong. As they walked past the old patient rooms, Allison swore she heard a beeping sound, like a heart monitor. She stopped in her tracks and turned to her friend. "Did you hear that?" But her friend had already moved ahead and didn't answer. So Allison followed, and then she saw something that made her blood run cold. Inside one of the ICU rooms, the light from her flashlight caught a reflection, asterisk eye star, a person standing in the corner, facing the wall. She dropped her flashlight in panic. The beam spun across the floor, landing on the bed in the room. But now the figure was gone. She screamed. Her friend came rushing back, confused and concerned. They searched the room, found nothing. But Allison couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching them. They left immediately, both too shaken to speak much on the drive home. Later that night, Allison's phone buzzed. It was a photo message from a number she didn't recognize. The photo showed the ICU room from earlier that night. In the background, just barely visible near the bed, was the figure. Only this time, it was facing the camera. She's never been able to trace the number, and she never went back to that hospital again. Asterisk credit asterisk. Submitted by Allison M., who now works in a completely different city and avoids abandoned buildings at all costs. And Story 3. The Ghost in the Graveyard Shift. Asterisk intro asterisk. This story comes from Chris D., a night janitor who used to work at a small-town funeral home in West Virginia. He didn't believe in ghosts until he became one of the few people who witnessed something so strange, so undeniably real, that even skeptics had to shut up and listen. Asterisk story asterisk. Chris had just started his job at the funeral home. His duties were simple: clean the hallways, mop the chapel, check the body refrigeration unit, and make sure the building was secure. He worked alone most nights, and at first, he didn't mind. It was quiet, peaceful, even, but that peace didn't last. One night, just past 2 a.m., he was buffing the floors near the viewing room when he heard a door creak open. He turned and called out, thinking maybe one of them bombers had come back in. No response. The hallway was dark, but he noticed a light flickering in the embalming room. That was strange. He knew he had shut everything off earlier. He walked over slowly, feeling uneasy. As he pushed the door open, the lights above him cut out completely, plunging the room into blackness. Then he heard a sound that made his skin crawl. Asterisk a slow, dragging noise asterisk, like something being pulled across the tile floor. He backed out of the room quickly and went to the control panel to reset the breaker. As the lights came back on, he froze. There was a gurney in the hallway with a covered body on it. That gurney hadn't been there before. Chris approached it slowly, tried to tell himself that maybe it had been moved earlier and he just didn't notice. But when he reached out to lift the corner of the sheet, the overhead light buzzed and the body sat up. Chris fell back, hitting the wall. But the gurney was suddenly empty. The sheet was still there, but the form underneath it had vanished. The hallway was dead silent. He ran out of the building and didn't return until morning. When he checked the security footage later, the cameras had glitched out for exactly 14 minutes, right around the time of the incident. That was the last night he ever worked alone. Asterisk credit asterisk. Asterisk shared by Chris D., who now works days only and says some places are built to hold the dead, but they don't always stay there. Asterisk end. Story 4. Voices from the Cold Room. Asterisk intro asterisk. This chilling story was sent in by Mark J., who worked a night shift at a large food storage facility in Colorado. His job? Monitor temperatures in the cold storage units and make sure everything stayed up to code. But something else was living in that freezer. Something that didn't care about food, only fear. Asterisk story asterisk. Mark had been working the job for about 6 months. The warehouse operated 24/7, but after midnight, most of the staff went home. Only Mark and 2 forklift drivers remained on site. His job took him through a maze of industrial freezers, where temperatures often dropped below -10 degrees Fahrenheit. He was used to the eerie silence, the constant hum of the fans, the sharp crack of ice forming on the metal walls. But over the course of a week in February, Mark started noticing something that didn't make sense. It began with the sound of breathing, heavy, slow breathing, coming from the cold room labeled Unit 7, the one rarely used since the cooling system in that section was a bit unstable. He thought maybe it was a busted vent echoing through the chamber. But when he opened the door to check, the room was empty and warm, like someone had recently been inside. That same night, when reviewing the temperature logs, he saw something strange. The log showed a spike in heat in Unit 7 at 2:37 a.m., just for 1 minute. Then it dropped back to freezing, as if something or someone had entered and exited quickly. The next night, Mark decided to bring a thermal sensor and camera with him. At exactly 2:35 a.m., he stood outside Unit 7, watching the temperature rise on the monitor. -10 degree, then -5 degree, then 35 degrees. His breath caught as he realized the cold wasn't failing. Something warm was inside that room star. He opened the door slowly. The interior light flickered, and there, near the back of the room, stood a figure, barefoot, pale, facing the wall. The air was ice cold again, but the figure didn't shiver. It slowly turned its head toward him. Not fully, just enough for Mark to catch a glimpse of its face. Hollow, sunken, as if it had been trapped in that freezer for years. Then the lights cut out. The door slammed shut behind him. For 10 terrifying seconds, Mark stood in total darkness. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. He felt something brush past him, then a whisper, so soft it barely registered. "You're not supposed to be here." The lights flicked back on. The door creaked open on its own, and the figure was gone. Mark sprinted out of there. Later, when he reviewed the camera footage, his own shadow was visible entering Unit 7, but nothing else. Not a single trace of the figure. But the thermal sensor? It had recorded a second heat signature. Human size. Since then, no one has used Unit 7. And Mark keeps that thermal scan saved on a USB drive, locked in a drawer, just in case someone ever calls him crazy. Asterisk credit asterisk. Asterisk submitted by Mark J., who says, "I've seen what hides in the cold. It wasn't human and it wasn't alone." Asterisk. End. Story 5. The Thing in the Back Room. Asterisk intro asterisk. This story comes from Naomi R., who worked the night shift at a small-town grocery store in Nevada. Most nights were boring, stocking shelves, organizing coolers, checking receipts. But one night, she saw something in the back room that made her question everything she believed about what's real and what lives in the shadows of places we think we know. Asterisk story asterisk. Naomi's shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 in the morning. The store closed at midnight, but between then and dawn, she was mostly alone, just her and a floor cleaner named Paul. They had access to the cameras, the stock room, and the walk-in coolers. Routine stuff. But around 3 a.m. one night, Naomi was walking past the security room when she noticed something odd on one of the screens. The motion sensor light in the back storage room, which hadn't been used in over a year, had turned on. She stared at the monitor. A faint shadow moved across the room, but it wasn't shaped like a person. It was lower, like something crawling. Thinking it might be an animal, she grabbed her flashlight and called for Paul, but he had his headphones in and didn't respond. So she went alone. The back room was dead silent. The light inside flickered weakly, and as she stepped in, she was hit by the smell of something old, like damp concrete and rotting wood. The boxes were stacked high, untouched for months. Then she heard it, a dragging noise. Slow, wet. She turned her flashlight in the direction of the sound and caught a glimpse of something pulling itself behind a row of pallets. It was pale, skin stretched tight like leather. Its limbs were unnaturally long, its fingers bent the wrong way. But what stopped her cold was the way it looked at her, not with eyes, but with awareness. It knew she was there. And it didn't move like an animal. It moved like something pretending to be human. She backed out of the room slowly and slammed the door shut. Then she ran to the security room to rewind the footage. But the screen for that camera had gone black. No feed. She begged the manager the next day to check the camera logs. He said there was nothing there, just static between 2:57 and 3:14 a.m. Naomi quit 2 nights later after she heard that dragging sound again, this time in the break room, with no one else in the building. To this day, the store uses that back room only for junk, and they keep the lights off. Always, credit asterisk submitted by Naomi R., who says, something's crawl into our world through forgotten spaces. And once they're here, they don't leave. Asterisk, and